So we're here at STEIM, and I'm here with Dick. Can you just tell us about your position in STEIM and what the STEIM is about?
I'm the director at STEIM. STEIM is a laboratory for musical instruments. STEIM stands for Studio for Electro-Instrumental Music. It has an interesting history. We were founded in 1969 in an era where we were first discovering the idea of sound coming from something else than, some acoustic device. So there was this magical thing where you had these electronic circuits, and if you connected them to amplifiers and connected those to speakers, you would hear sounds, which was quite a revelation at the time. But then the next question was, well, how do you make music with that? How do you organize those sounds? And a lot of it at the time, of course, was literally tape splicing. You cut tape, composed musical structure by, basically cutting up tape and reassembling it. So at some point there was a group of Dutch composers who said to themselves, we should try experimenting with the idea of instrumentality here. How could we play these sounds, like you play a guitar or a violin or any other instrument? Can we build instruments that are interfaces to these new sonic worlds in a way? A lot of it started in the early days. Well, so that's the premise that STEIM was built on, because it's really boring to look at a tape recorder. If you go to a concert and it's a tape concert, there's not much to see. I've been there, and it is, yes, you close your eyes and you start listening to the music because there's literally nothing to look at. There's also no live dynamic between performers and audience. What's interesting is that the irony of the whole thing is that we're sort of there again with the laptop performances. The laptop isn't much more interesting to look at than a tape recorder. We still get people that are sort of tired of pressing buttons on their laptop, and they say, I want something that that uses my body. I have all these limbs and all these muscles, and it's all very expressive. There's things you can say with movements of muscles that you can't say with pressing buttons. And so that's why, in essence, we're still doing the same thing. We're really, working with people that want to use their whole bodies when they play a musical instrument. We get a lot of people that want to experiment with installations or theater, dance, juggling, all these things that are physical manifestations of playing. So that's always been the essence of STEIM, even though it went from electronics to MIDI to sampling to digital technology, all kinds of digital technologies. And now we're basically doing everything. We're still selling crackle boxes that we designed in the 70s. Wow. They're actually very popular amongst very young people. The crackle box is an unstable electronic circuit. You play it by using your galvanic skin response. So it depends on how nervous you are, how sweaty you are, how warm it is. But what's really beautiful conceptually about the crackle box is that literally your body becomes part of the instrument. Mm-hmm. It's literally part of the instrument. The current flows through your skin, through your body, and back into the box. And it generates crackling sounds. So this is what it looks like. You are looking at the circuit board. And so it's a very simple thing. I can't take them apart, but come on here. Yeah. Oh, there it is. And so basically, it's a beautiful thing. It's well designed. It's really, it looks the way it looks because it was really designed to look this way in the 70s. It's very anti-modernist in the sense that it's about not being able to fully control everything. Mm-hmm. Every time you pick it up, it feels differently because the temperature in the room is different, the humidity, your skin is different, and it takes like a minute to sort of, it feels like this now.
So there is a big element of chance there.
Yes, and there's a big element of not being in control.
Yes.
But still, you have, you feel that after a minute or two, you do have some control. There's some mastery of it. It's really almost like an essential instrument for improvisation. Many instruments and also many musicians that come here, they're looking for control. I want, so many buttons because I want to precisely control these parameters, and the crackle box is sort of the opposite.
Yes.
Well,
It's quite free.
it's it has a sense of freedom to it, and you have to trust yourself. You have to have faith in your own performative capabilities.
Can you tell us a bit about hands, for people who don't know what hands are?
Well, the hands were a very specific instrument built by Michel Weisfies, our previous director. They were these devices that were literally built for his hands. Everything about them matched the size of his particular hands, and they were basically, there was a microphone, there were distance sensors, there were accelerometers, there were all these sensors in them that allowed him to sort of, be very gestural when performing, but they're also iconical of what you could call the personal instrument. Many people come to us and they want to build an instrument for themselves. They don't want an instrument like a guitar or any other familiar instrument that has a whole tradition and that is standardized. No, they want to make something that is really about them. They want to sort of tailor whatever it is that they touch when they play to be really about their sonic fascination in a way. Especially these days, now that computers are so powerful, we get a lot of one-man band type people. People that build interfaces and instruments that really allow them to do it all. We have many performances by people that perform solo because they have such a rich sonic world in whatever interface they're using. They can perform on their own, and it's enough. There's enough sound. This is really something that draws a lot of people to STEIM. A lot of people come here because they want their own instrument. That is their instrument, their particular instrument. Sometimes we help people for like an afternoon, and other people stay for a week, and some people stay for 2 months and work in one of our studios. And way at the other end of the spectrum, there are these artists that we really handpick and say, well, we want to work with you because the way you play your instrument or the questions you're asking yourself are interesting for us as well. We know that if we help you build an instrument, we will learn too. And in the last couple of years, that's been Alex Nowitz, a German singer. So he's really familiar with his own voice. And he started off with 2 Wii controllers. He records his own voice while he's performing, and then he plays it back with, the interfaces that he's using. And it's a very sort of physical thing if you see him perform. It's like he's molding his own voice that he just recorded. And he went from 2 Wii controllers to the instrument that he's developed. He calls it the shells. A bit like the hands, but he has one on every hand. And the other example is, I've got one here. This is a sonic juggling ball. Tom Johnson, the composer, came to us and he said he'd written a piece for jugglers. In fact, the jugglers are the Gandinis, who are based in London. But he needed juggling balls that would make a sound as you throw them and as you catch them. So this was... We are STEIM. It says we are STEIM, yeah. So this is a prototype ball. This is one of the early balls we made. In the end, we did end up developing these balls for him. We have 15 of these now. Yes, they make a sound if you catch them.
So can you just tell me what's inside? I mean, I can see there's a piezo inside and the speaker.
Yes, this particular one has a piezo microphone. There's a speaker. There's a SpeakJet chip, which does speech synthesis as well as normal subtractive synthesis. It's a very simple subtractive synthesizer. There's an amplifier. The next generation of the balls also has an accelerometer. There's Wi-Fi. They have a standard battery. This one actually has a rechargeable battery. But this is a very early prototype.
And which material is this? Some kind of rubber?
Some kind of silicon.
It looks great.
I love this one. This one is actually better looking than the good ones. It's cool. It says random things.
So can you tell me a bit about your workshop activities, about people that come here and hold talks and different kind of workshops?
We have very many different kinds of workshops. The most typical one is our own introduction workshop. Often when people have some idea for a project that they'd like to do here, we will tell them, well, why don't you first come to one of the introduction workshops, which is, you're here for a couple of days, and we just take you through all the different phases of building an instrument or building some kind of installation thing. What is a sensor? How do you connect a sensor to an AD converter board like an Arduino? How do you read the information from the board? How do you manipulate the information that comes into your computer? How do you send it, within your computer to some kind of synthesizer or other, piece of software? And we take people through all these steps. Throughout all this, we always ask them, well, keep in mind how you want to play. What kinds of body gestures? Do you want to do something like this, or is it something that's what feels right to you, given your music? So basically, that introduces people to the whole idea of what it takes to build an instrument. Then there's workshops where people who are familiar with a programming language or with Super Collider or any of these specific tools will teach a workshop on that, which is like a normal workshops. We're starting like a new version of the introduction workshops called the Instrument Lab. But we also have like guests that stay here for like 2 weeks. And we'll ask them, well, while you're here, why don't you, do us a favor and teach a workshop for our local audience for 2 days or 2 evenings. It's very varied. Anything goes, basically.
And also I've seen that you've done the festival.
Patterns and Pleasure. Us presenting ourselves to a slightly larger audience than usual. So once in a while, we organize a bigger event. We have lots and lots of small events. This was in a theater, 3 evenings of concerts, 3 days of symposiums, workshop, open house. People could bring their stuff. We had an exhibit in the hallways. It was basically a kind of a conference type thing with a big emphasis on the concert part in the evenings. We had talks on improvisation, on complexity, more conceptual issues during the daytime. But we also had these circuit bending workshops and crackle workshops on how do you build your own crackle box, how do you make interesting sort of little devices with cheap technology. Lots of different artists in performing in the evening program, varying from Alex, who's an opera singer, to Moldover, who's like a pop musician, who has this Mojo controller that he built himself. Jessica Ryland, who's this crazy sound manipulating artist. We're not really tied to a specific genre. Anything is okay with us, whether it's pop or classical or jazz or experimental or noise. We do get a lot of noise people, but that comes with the territory. Yeah.
What's your collaboration like with universities, colleges, and other arts organizations?
We work a lot with schools and universities. Locally, we work with the Royal Conservatory in The Hague. We have a master's degree that we do together with them. It's called Instruments and Interfaces. We work with the Utrecht School of the Arts, and we work with the Technical University in Eindhoven with their industrial design department. They have an interesting industrial design department in the sense that their students don't just design, but they actually build stuff. We have lots of international relationships in Leicester, De Montfort, Newcastle, CalArts, Brown, Chicago. Nick Collins, was one of our previous artistic directors, is now in Chicago. Takuro Mitsuta Lipit, our current artistic director, is Japanese, so he has all these contacts in Asia. Our workshop director, Byung-Jung Kwon, is Korean, so we have all these Korean contacts now. Even Sydney, University of Technology Sydney. In the old days, it was us building stuff. We're becoming a place where you come to STEIM to learn. Yeah, more open and collaborative than it was in the past.
So how would you sum up STEIM then for us?
STEIM is a place where people experiment with instruments for live performance. That really is the essence. 80-90% of what we do is about how can I work this thing with my body in a live performance setting. It's about the body and it's about the live moment. You grab this thing, and as you grab it, it does something. It becomes visceral. We really like the body. Everything that has to do with that. We experiment with that stuff. People that come here want to experiment with that stuff. And like I said, everybody learns from everybody else. 18-year-old kids talking to 75-year-old, veterans. And it's really cool. There's no, we officially serve all generations in a way. As long as you're fascinated by this thing called live performance, we can help you make an instrument. That's the idea.
Great, thank you.